And now we begin.
All right.
So, um, so yeah, man. So you talked, where we chatted before this all went down, and kind of wanted to get an idea about what we're going to talk about today. And um, today is just going to be pretty much the, kind of the ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate itself.
Okay.
And I think starting out, man, I think, well, let's start about it from your side, man. I guess coming into the industry, what expectations did you have coming into the industry?
Coming in,
Yeah.
um, honestly, I kind of had no expectations because I really didn't honestly know what to expect, I guess.
Okay.
What I will say is I thought that it wasn't going to be as much of a learning curve, I guess.
Okay.
Is it has been or was?
Sure.
It still is. I mean,
Yep.
I'm always learning something, but
Right.
I guess overall it was, it's kind of funny because, for those of you who are, especially military or married to somebody in the military, you'll understand the statement. But going to, the real estate school was like going to army school. I learned a bunch of stuff about nothing that pertains to my daily life. Um, so, so, so you go through school for 2 weeks and you're like, ta-da, and you go take a test. You're like, yeah, what's up? I'm awesome. I passed this test.
Right.
And then they're like, so cool story. Now go do this. And you're like, I have no idea what this paperwork is.
Right.
So the learning curve was quite steep.
Yeah.
Quite steep.
Nah. Okay. So, I mean, from my side, man, mine was more so, coming in the industry, I was fresh, man. My buddy Zach was the one who kind of got me into it, and um, he gave me the surface level of what it entailed of. But being a loan officer, man, it definitely, in my opinion, it takes us to be a decent loan officer. I think it takes, it takes a certain person.
Yeah.
Put it like that. I think that's going to be with any job that you do. Besides, unless you're just one of the Walmart greeters, that doesn't take a lot of skill, I guess, necessarily. But I'm talking about like in the aspect of us, your job and my job. I think there are some people who are meant for it and some who aren't.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. It's just, some people, I think a lot of people get the idea of like, hey, I'm going to hop into this industry and I'm just going to like start, pooping $100 bills left and right.
No, but seriously, like
Yeah.
that is a big
Misconception.
it is a big misconception.
Ugh.
Everybody's like, "Oh man, your real estate makes so much." I don't know about all that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
if you kind of went down to what I get paid per hour, some are probably around $3 an hour. You know what I mean? Like it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, you got good months and you got not so good months.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No,
But-
I don't know. Like it's kind of been a roller coaster, because when you and I got into it, the market wasn't nuts. It was kind of just it was a good market.
Yeah. It was.
Um,
I'll say this. I think it was better than definitely what we experienced last year. For sure.
1,000%, 1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I mean, still, I think that, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I won't get into that, but it's getting into it, right? It was. Again, back to the statement of it was a steep learning curve, but I guess you had the ability and the time to kind of learn it.
right.
I think where a lot of the misconception comes from is during the, like everybody likes to refer to as the golden years or the COVID years, which I
Right.
thought was pure insanity. You have a lot of agents that came in at that time and lenders that came in at that time
Yeah.
that were just, dude, it wasn't even like low hanging fruit. Like you were getting beat over the head with the fruit falling off the tree. And it was like, if you can not get concussions and get knocked
Yeah.
out, like you were fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then learning how to actually, actually run a business and treat your business or your business like a business. I mean, that's something
Yeah.
that, our brokerage used to teach all the time was, are you running your business like a business?
Right.
And I think that's where a majority of the people on your side
Mm-hmm.
of the street, of my side of the street, I think they fail in that because
Right.
they're only looking at what's right in front of their toes versus
Right.
how do I build this or scale this as
Right.
and when I say scale it, guys, I'm not talking about like how do I make $1 million a year. That's not what I'm referring to. It's how do you actually make this your livelihood? How do you make your
Yeah. How do you
business
make it?
sustainable?
How do you make an actual career out of it,
Right,
not just
right. Yeah,
a job? And
yeah.
but I think we're we talked about it prior. We talked about plenty of times on the podcast. It comes down to education at the end of the day, and I think this is kind of where I think we should really break down kind of the truths behind contracts, man. Because I mean, we're in an era of just like click here, sign, and do you actually know what you're signing necessarily, right?
That's a valid point.
And so, I know you do a very good job, a very thorough job about explaining the contract and like, what each section means, right? Because same thing, with my clients, like I give them the options, like, hey, dude, if you want to set a time, let's set a time, let's set a time to where we can kind of go over everything. But if you're comfortable with what you're doing, then go for it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I even with the people that say that they're, comfortable or
Right,
they understand,
right,
I do everything that I possibly can to try to kind of apply the brakes
yeah,
and get everybody to kind of just sit down for a minute and let the dust settle for a second.
right,
You've heard me say it 1,000 times. So for anybody else that's never heard me say it, there's always three words I tell everybody I work with, buyer, seller wise. I say there's three words I don't want to hear in the middle of this transaction, and it's but I thought.
right,
I'm not dealing with this.
right,
It's one thing if you misunderstood something. Like I get that happens. There's a lot of, I mean, we're up to like 11 pages of a freaking purchase and sale agreement. There's all
right,
these addendums and
yeah,
all this stuff going on. Not to mention the lender docs. Like there's a lot of stuff, and I get that,
right,
and stuff can be missed or stuff can be confused, and I get that, and that's not what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is I want you to fully understand what we're about to embark on
right. I agree.
when we're going to go down this road.
Yeah,
So for I guess for contract makeup as a general concept, right? I mean, you have the house that you're applying for. You have what type of loan you're going to use, which would be what your
right.
lender's going to educate you on, right?
Yep.
And then from there, you have basically your inspection or your closing date. You'll have an inspection date. You'll have or inspection period. You'll have a resolution period. You'll have a once you're done with the resolution period, I mean, it kind of just goes down to for your final inspection and then your closing.
Well,
In general, I mean,
okay. So let's talk about hypothetically the people with cold feet. Okay. So let's just say we are legally under contract and home inspection. There's nothing crazy. We're good. We're past the home inspection phase. Then they're like, hey,
past it,
yeah, you're past that. You're
past the resolution.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So you're past that phase. Okay. We're in a situation where let's just say the buyer's like, dude, I can't do this. It's too much. Like there's no way. So you say that's what I'm saying. At this point, it's just like there's really not an outing necessarily.
I mean, I'll put it to you this way: nobody can make you sign. Now, what I'm going to tell you too is that if you because it's called default in a contract, right?
Yeah.
So if you default, right? If you just decide you're not doing this,
Right.
there could be legal. I say could is because it's up to the seller.
Yeah.
If they want to seek any kind of legal recourse.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say they will. I'm not going to say you're going to get sued. I don't know because it's not up to me.
Yeah.
It's up to them.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people I think should understand that, and it's not like saying, hey, well, we got you, you're in, here it is.
But I think the cold feet thing, man. And I actually, it's funny because I had a conversation with our broker this morning about this. We were just kind of having a general discussion this morning. We were kind of throwing different things back and forth at each other. And we kind of brought up that concept that there's a lot more of the cold feet concept going on
Yeah.
this past year and even coming into the beginning of this year than either one of us has really seen in quite a while.
That's facts.
I
100%. Like
Yeah, I was like, and I'm sure
yeah,
you see it on the
yeah,
lending side more than I see it.
yeah,
On the buyer side or on the list or the either buyer or the listing side.
right,
But I think a lot of that has to do with it's the education concept.
yeah,
It's the at what point and I think so. You and I, right? So you and I'll use us for example because it's the only thing I can factually speak on.
mm-hmm.
But I can't remember ever really having anybody who's like, I just can't do this and
We have
back
one
up. Who?
clients property, the dude buying the property.
Oh yeah.
That was like
That's right. That's
and I'll
right.
say like that's the first time I've ever ran into it to where we're like, dude, well, I mean, we're at the finish line, man. Like, I have
Yeah, like the
everything.
day before closing. He's just
Yeah,
looking like, yeah, I mean that's true too. But
yeah,
again, it goes back to, what are the ramifications? It's like seek, he says
yeah,
in the bottom of the contract, seek legal,
yeah.
seek go talk to
Right,
your attorney.
right,
Like I
right.
don't because there's nothing I don't know. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? But
yeah,
with us as on the buyer side, like we've never had anybody uh, just be like, oh, I can't do this. But I
right,
think, but I really think that boils down to the our 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 practices and our principles of how
right.
you and I kind of handle stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we make sure to now we're in two separate lanes, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but we try to work as a unit,
Right,
me and you together, to make sure that the buyers understand the process, understand the money side of it, understand everything,
right.
and there's never like this disconnection of, oh well, what do you mean I got to come up with 20 more grand for something like,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
yeah.
that communication piece. So when I explain it with buyers, right, and we're going back to this whole contract thing, that's why I try to, with every ounce of my ability, I try to take legitimate time. And when I say legitimate time, like I want like 2 hours of your time,
Right.
and I want to go through this stuff, and I want you to be able to ask the questions. I want you to be able to kind of read some stuff and let it soak in. And what I
Yeah.
really like is when I talk to you, we can go over the contracts and stuff. We can kind of go over all the paperwork, and I can tell you to go away and don't call me for 3 days. And then
Right.
when you're ready to go look at a couple houses in 3 days, call me, but come to me with a list of your questions.
Yeah.
And I mean seriously, because at that
Yeah.
point, like I can go through your series of questions that you
Yeah.
have
Uh-huh.
while we're going to look at some houses. So it kind of knocks out two birds with one stone concept. But
Yeah.
at the same token, it gave you a chance to kind of let it all kind of soak in
Right. Yeah.
versus just like it's a world, it's a freaking, tornado
Yeah.
in your head and you just got to go for it.
Yeah. But see, but I think that's where a lot of people just don't really understand, when it comes to buying a house, man, it's big boy, big girl stuff. Like at the end of the day, man. I think a lot of people, um I think a lot of people have this unrealistic expectation of like, once I'm in a contract, I can still go look at more homes, or I can, or I can make offers on other homes because what if I don't like this home?
No.
But again, I think that's like one of the fairy tales of real estate, um, where I mean, I saw it a lot last year, man. Like I saw it a lot, and like when an agent would tell me, hey, they made an offer on this home, but we also want to make an offer on this other home. And I was like, dude, that's not my lane. But I was like, well, and I asked the agent, I was like, so what happens if both of them get accepted? So I was like, at what point, like, what do you do?
But see, that goes back to what's the right principal thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And the correct principal thing to do is you pick the one house and you go after the one house. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
You're not pre-approved for two houses.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, like when I ran across that, I said, hey, this could go either way. I mean, they're gonna have two offers out, and I'm like, and like,
I mean, in theory, I guess you could also withdraw your offer, but again, like you just said, I was like, what happens if they get signed and they both come back like congratulations, and you're like, uh-oh.
yeah, like now you're under contract on two homes at one time, and it's like, yo, homie, like I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a really dangerous line to be trying to walk, man, as a lender
Yeah.
or as a realtor, man. Like that's
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and for everybody out listening, man, like if you find a house and that you like, right? It's again, and Mike said it last week too. He's like, is it affordable? Right? Is it where you want to be? Does it meet your
Right.
intent? Like all those things, right? Like then it's fine. Stop looking. And I think the problem is, and again, my broker and I were talking, like I said, talking about this morning. And we brought this exact same thing up too. And I was telling him, I was like, I think a lot of it has to do with it's almost like a instant gratification thing, right? And also, it's
I pressed one button, dude, and okay.
There it goes. There
we
it
go.
goes. And
Cheese and rice. What a joke.
but we have it's the instant gratification, and
Right.
it's almost like everybody's mind, and this is kind of a hit on social media too, because we're so programmed to just sit here and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, right?
Right.
To where you have the one thing in front of you, you're like, okay, cool, I got this one thing, and then all of a sudden, but you're still wanting to scroll instead of just being,
Right.
I guess,
Like fixated on the one thing that you
right.
that
Maybe maybe the word is content would be
Sure.
a good way to put it.
Okay.
Maybe they're just not content with it. But here's the thing: if you weren't content, like, and it's not meeting the stuff, then why did we put an offer in?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I 100%
Like,
agree on that.
And if anybody that's listening has ever worked with me as an agent, like, you'll understand that, dude. I don't. If it takes you 5 months to find a house, it takes us 5 months to find the house. Like,
Right.
I just want you to be comfortable in your decision.
Yeah. Well, and it's a lot of people don't understand from the lending side, man, where, it comes down to people. It really comes down to the people who are shopping, which is fine. I encourage, like, if you want to shop around, that's fine. But a lot of the times, man, it's people who get fixated on one thing and one lender's rate, and then they'll wait a week and then they'll start shopping again with a different lender. But then I was like, I tell a lot of people, I was like, hey man, if you want a fair quote on something that's realistic, you need to shop within the same day, because it's like, rates change hourly. And I'm like, if you're trying to find out who has currently the best deal, right? And you're trying to figure out who you want to go with or who you want to get a pre-approval with, then you need to ask the lender in the same day. Because, lo and behold, I may quote you at a 5.5% one day, and then the next day you're at a 5.875 because the market shifted. But a lot of people don't understand that. And no matter how many times I've coached them up about it, I tell everybody, look, dude, like, you don't have to stay with me. You don't have to stay with your lender. Just because you're in a contract on a home doesn't mean that you can't switch lenders.
Right.
I do my best to explain to everybody that, rate's important. It's not everything. It's just the service aspect, right? Mm-hmm. The service aspect to me is what definitely carries a transaction. And I think it's a service aspect from the agent side and the lender side, because again, no matter where you look, there's always going to be there's always going to be a cheaper loan officer. There's always going to be a cheaper agent. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. Dude, I could go out and buy a brand new 2024 Ford F-250 and pay, market value. And then I could go down the road to Hopkinsville and maybe they're selling it $5,000 cheaper. Right? Yeah. Like that's the whole reality of it. Is there's always going to be somebody out there who can probably beat your rate, your cost, whatever. But I think it's just one of those things where a lot of people don't understand that typically you sacrifice one or the other. Like, hey, do you want a really aggressive rate and really good cost? Typically, you're going to see the service kind of fall out. Okay. Or maybe this lender's a little bit more expensive. Not a lot, but a little bit more expensive, but they're reputable. They're local, like they have a good reputation, and and like they come highly recommended because they know they kill it in the customer service aspect, right? Yeah. And I've been shopped to no end, man, especially last year. There's banks and some other lenders, dude, who were doing deals for like practically nothing just to get something, and I'm like, I can't, like, my hands are tied, brother. I can't do anything. And, and at, some points, we can price match and we can do things like that. But, at the same token, a lot of people will, again, get fixated on one rate they saw and they just run with it. And I have to explain to a lot of people that, like, hey, man, again, rates change daily.
Yeah. But then also, like, they might pitch you a rate, but, like, we always talk about is what's it going to cost you to get the raise? Because they may advertise something, but you're not understanding
Well,
what it all entails, right?
yeah. Well, and here's kind of a good example, man, is there's an online lender, Navy Federal. I do not mind calling them out. Navy Federal, USAA, and both of them. They like to show flashy rates. They do, 100% do. And, I had a client shop me saying, hey, Navy Federal saying, instead of, this many discount points that you're doing, they're only going to charge me half a discount point to get that rate that you're giving me. And I was like, okay, hey. I was like, so you see that there's this tiny little number, like it looks like a little exponent number, the tiny little number next to that 5.5%. I was like,
Must have a bazillion
dude,
credit score.
I told him to click on it because I was on the phone with him. I said, click on it. And he's like, okay. And I was like, it should have brought you to a disclaimer. And I was like, can you read me what the disclaimer says? Because like, I've seen their site. I know how it works. And he was like, oh, but based on, what is this, 1% in origination? I was like, haha. So technically you're paying 1.5 points. So they're just showing you, hey, technically you're only paying half a discount, but we're going to charge you 1% in origination. So it's like, dude, you're paying for that. So I was like, he's like, oh, I was like, yeah. I was like, brother, it's nothing different, man. I was like, you don't. And I told him, I was like, that's why we just laid out up front, man. There's no smoky mirrors. I'm not going to switch fees.
There's
just
no little tiny number that you can click on to get a different screen to read some stuff.
Yeah. So, Carmen, okay. When do you think we'll be back in multiple offers and people won't have the luxury to shop around?
Ooh. So that's a good question. I guess, Carmen, I don't have a date, obviously. Like, I don't know. I do foresee it being probably sometime.
I think, honestly, the next couple of months.
Well, we said it last week, too. I think April, May timeframe, I think somewhere in that ballpark, it's going to be popping off pretty hard again.
I think March is, in my opinion, I think March is when you're going to start seeing the a more aggressive change in rates.
Okay, fair. Yeah, fair.
And I think with that super aggressive change, it's going to that to me for the next 2 months, that's what's going to spark the whole madness.
Yeah, and that's the problem though too and we've mentioned this a couple times now, and I feel like it's almost every podcast anymore. But
right,
we here for our area of the world, we've got about, let's say, a month and a half worth of inventory-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, right?
Right.
Which again means that if everybody decided they're going to buy a house today, we've only got about that much worth before we're out of inventory.
Yep.
So with that being said, if it were to heat up, right?
Yep.
In, let's say, we say March, right? So by mid-April, everything that could be under contract is basically going to be under contract.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the problem is that the demand is so high. All your, again, incentives go away. The prices start to go up because we're now back into people are going to be asking for or basically waiving things and or paying over appraised value. Yeah. Which again starts the madness of the climbing prices.
Right.
So again, because the problem is you offer on a house and it goes into multiple offers and you have to pay, let's say, I don't know, 20 grand over, right? Or whatever it was. So it appraised for 350, but it closed at 370.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? So that comp now becomes a comp for 370.
Yeah. Well,
now, there's some appraisers that will kind of argue that in a sense that they say that's not a real comp, but I get that, right? Yeah. It's kind of semantics, but at the end of the day, the house is worth 370 because that's what somebody was willing to pay for, which then your neighbor can now list their house for X, right? Right. Because that starts climbing this again, which takes that, and I've said it 100 times here, that 3.5% annual growth of exit one turns that into a 5% growth,
or a 7%, or a 9%.
Like I said, I think in the height of it, for everybody's recollection, I want to say exit one was somewhere around 11%.
Yeah,
and I think exit 18 was right around 18 or
Exit 11, yeah,
18%.
yeah, yeah.
That's insane, guys. That's freaking nuts.
But you know, and that's kind of like, again, this is like the ugly, you know, kind of the ugly truth to our side, where at the end of the day, I mean, it's not this guy, it's not the agents I work with, it's not the lenders he works with, it's not me, it's not Castle Rock, it's not Byers and Harvey. Nobody dictates these home prices, and nobody dictates the rates. You know, we're here, like, our job is to inform you of what the market is doing currently, and to help you to make a decisive decision of what, if this is going to be the move for you, or maybe it's not, right? But that's all we can do. You know, I can't. It'd be nice if I could just say, "Hey, you want me to pause it? Cool, I'll pause it for you." You know, like,
You want me to drop these prices? I got you.
Yeah. You want the twos again? All right. Where's the rewind button? Let me rewind it for you. I was like, you know, I hear people get upset. I hear people, you see it probably more on social media more than anything. When you see a real estate agent post a video or a lender post a video, you know what they say? Oh, this just sounds like a real estate agent chasing a commission check. Oh, this just sounds like a normal realtor just posting stuff just so they can get somebody to feed them. And it's just like, there's such a big misconception with that, man. And a lot of people don't like to hear it. You know, it's kind of like where some people, again, they have the blinder mentality where they feel like whoever hurt them before, whatever agent hurt them before, or whatever, they've got this narrow-minded view of, like, you guys are only doing it for sales. Now, don't get me wrong, there are agents out there that are just like that. But I was like, as a whole, when somebody's giving you facts and stats to support what they said, you can't just, like, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but what I'm saying is, like, your argument of, like, hey, this is just a sales pitch, at that point is going to be invalid, because, like, what can you show me that's going to change what I just said? Like,
well, and they can't, right? And it's
Right.
the same conversation, because, and a lot of those people are the same people that were having that same argument before the COVID madness, right?
yeah.
You know, and then right after that happened, the interest rates they spiked up, and they stayed up there for a while, and they're just now finally starting to come back down a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was the same people being like, "Oh, I'm going to wait till the market crashes." Well, what data do you have that the market's going to crash? Because there's literally nothing anywhere that says.
Right.
I mean, even old Dave Ramsey, right? And we've mentioned him several times, like, because I would call us 80% Dave Ramsey people, because there's about 80% we believe and about 20% we're not really down with.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really make operational sense, or it doesn't really make sense to us.
Right.
But even he was saying, you know, like he was saying last year, he's like, the best time to buy a house was yesterday. He's like, / right now. He was like, because it's only getting more expensive. And that goes back to the basic economics of, like, we were talking about in the office a minute ago. What was the percentage? Like 40, what percentage of, what did you say? 40 something percent of the money?
Oh, it's like 45 or 48%.
Of all the money that's in circulation was printed during the madness years.
Yeah. Like
just
literally
think
within
about
6
that for a
months,
minute.
man. Like,
so you want to know where our inflation's at? That's where our inflation's at.
Yeah.
And guess what? It can't go backwards. It
Yeah.
cannot go backwards. It can't go down.
well, but again, man, a lot of people just, here's kind of like, in my opinion, what a lot of people see the market as, and it's going to be, you know, the notion of, okay, I didn't get into a house because I refused to pay over asking. Okay, that's fine. And all the people who bought in over asking are dumb because they're upside down on their home. Okay. So then, and then, you know what they do? They're like, oh, this seems like a repeat of 2008. And no matter how many times we play this same song and dance, dude, it doesn't matter, man. Like, because at the end of the day, there are two totally different scenarios. Like, you could look, and like the amount of supply we had during 2008 was insane. There was so much out there and not enough buyers, because guess what? Predatory lending, man. Like, lending.
That's because before CFPB became a thing, right? We had.
Bro, I could have gave you an interest rate and your terms on a napkin and be like, sign it. You want this house? Sign it. Here you go. You work in McDonald's? You know, you're making like $28K a year. You want this $400K home? Perfect.
Got you.
But honestly, like that's why you're starting to see, I would much rather you be upset with me because I couldn't approve you now than for me just approve you when you shouldn't be buying a home point blank period. Like I would much rather you hate me and be so upset with me that I couldn't get you approved than to just sit there and willy-nilly, oh, hey, yeah, man, here you go. Here's your home. And then 6 months later, I see your house going up, for foreclosure, you know? I mean, that's just the reality of it, man. They made it a lot harder to get a home. I agree. But again, that's why things are in place to avoid
But
a
it was,
2008.
but, yeah, but it was an easy button for the banks to make, and everybody to make all this money off, like you just said, predatory lending, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, by definition, that's literally what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they were able to make up whatever numbers they wanted to, and that's where CFPB came along.
Yeah.
In 2009 ish,
Um,
something like that, 10, whatever it was.
yeah, it was. It wasn't.
I don't remember when exactly it came out.
Yeah.
But that was when that became the new lending standard, if you will, to where
Yeah.
what the guidelines he's got to go off of.
Yeah.
It made it to where you had to actually qualify with certain things, and then that's where again, the ugly truth concept is you we meet a lot of people, right? So to kind of put this in a little different light of, they're like, oh, I love this house, but I want my budget to be around, let's just say $1,800 a month, $1,200 a month. We, what I mean, we laugh, and I'm not saying that to be like rude to anybody, but it's, even if you like, the basic math doesn't, like, even if you kind of looked at it, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't understand that you can't just buy whatever you want and then pick an interest, or not an interest rate, but pick a monthly payment, and it's going to be like, you can't.
It's not like buying a car where they give you 3 options. You want your monthly payment to be here, or here.
No,
Exactly.
But that's exactly, I think,
that's
where
what
it
it
comes
is.
from, though, is
Yeah.
they think that, like, oh, well, I want to take this monthly payment, and it's like, it doesn't work like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally a direct math equation with an
Yeah.
amortization chart. Like, you're going to get X percentage rate,
Yep.
which means your monthly payment's going to be X. Like, that's how this is factored.
Yeah. Yeah. But again,
Talk about fees.
fees. Yeah. So
Like the different ones, and like how they
how they differ.
come about.
Okay.
Yeah, how they differ.
So literally every statement I give all my clients is literally the only difference between lenders is you're going to get a thing on your loan estimate, and you're going to go to page number 2, and it's a breakdown of all the fees that's included in your loan. Where the fees differ, there's only one section where it's going to differ. Not meaning like where a lender can change fees. That's going to be Section A. Section A allows a lender to put any kind of underwriting fee. There's an underwriting fee. If there's an origination fee, discount points, application fee, like that is a lender section. Section B, all the way through the whole 9, is standard mortgage fees. Section B, everybody's going to have an appraisal fee. Section, B is going to have a credit report fee. Okay. We start looking at C, title expenses. Okay. Everybody's got title expenses, and it's not like, oh, hey, Castle Rock's charging $200 for title, and Rocket Mortgage is charging $100. Like, that's not how it works. Like, I don't control title. I can give you it's going to be an estimate, but I have no say so in that. Same thing with your prepays and your escrows, right? I don't have a say in that. I'm not the one who chooses your taxes, and I'm not the one who chooses your homeowner's insurance. It's totally up to you. I give you estimates.
Yeah.
I give you estimates on there all day, but that's it. So, the fees where it comes to play is Section A. Section A is where you're going to see the biggest, difference between lenders. Where, like I've seen people charge an application fee, a processing fee. I've seen just a lot of funky fees, but the standard is an underwriting fee. Most lenders will charge an underwriting fee, which is fine. Like it's pretty normal. Now, when you start seeing fees stacked, where it's like, hey, you got 1% in origination, 1% in discount, you're paying pretty much 2 points in discount. It is what it is to get it right, and that's what it is. You know, and because like no matter whether I put 2% for discount points or 2% in origination, that section is still going to equal the same. It doesn't matter how I label it.
Yeah, it's
It-
still
it-
the same math.
Yeah, math is going to math at the end of the day. But yeah, you know all the fees that that are pretty much mandatory in a transaction are your appraisal fee, mandatory, title fees, mandatory, prepaids like your homeowner's insurance, mandatory, setting up your escrow if you're escrowing, mandatory. Those are all going to be the fees that's associated with a mortgage, guys. And Section A, free willy. Seriously, it's free willy. That's where you're going to start deciphering, which lenders which, who's going to, if you really want to shop around, then I'd tell a lot of people, look at your rate, look at the fees in Section A. Let me know where it's at.
So I tell a lot of the buyers when we're working with them too, if they're with different lenders, I tell them to shop around. I was like, but you need to, it's not, so there's a big misconception, right? Like, so we have, most agents like to label them in two ways, right? They say pre-qualification and pre-approval.
Right.
Now, most of them be like, oh, well, I better have a pre-approval because pre-qualifications are garbage. Well, in all reality, everything you get off the jump's a pre-qualification.
Yep.
Because until you actually, they run your credit.
Yep.
And they actually do they receive documents from you.
Yep.
To qualify you,
Pretty much.
you're not pre-qualified. So even though on the form it'll say pre-qualification or pre-approval letter, you're not pre-approved until you're actually qualified, which means that you've basically been through the first form of underwriting, if you will, to where you've got the lender has gotten documents. They've again pulled your credit. They've actually researched the fact that you are actually employed by Blockbuster still, even though they're out of they've been out of business for 20 years, right? But you're like, okay, cool. So they look at the stuff so contractually speaking, I was like, that's why we have these things called notification forms that we're supposed to do. And says, hey, look, buyer has applied for his credit check. Well, there a lot of agents will be like, well, we don't need to do that. You have a pre-approval. That pre-approval doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
That pre-approval just means that they went online and filled out an application and said go.
Well, I think so lenders like the big online lenders. Yeah. So like, Rocket, even USAA, Navy Federal, again, what you're going to do is, you're going to fill out the online application and you're not going to submit any documents. You're going to put, hey, I make $5,000 a month. Okay, you make $5,000 a month. They pull your credit and they're like, hey, congratulations, you're pre-qualified for $300,000.
Which is just the one step of really three, because again, it's the credit score that got pulled.
Yes.
Which is cool. That means you qualify for whatever bracket they're going to put you in.
Right.
But they haven't verified income. They haven't verified, all these other things that they need to verify to actually pre-approve you.
Because a lot of people will think they calculated their income right, and that's where their pre-approval comes in is like, once I see your pay stub or I see your W-2s and I calculate your income, the mortgage expert, me. And when I calculate your income, I may hurt your feelings. You may say $5,000, and realistically, you only make $3,000. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, those are the conversations I have with a lot of people, and I just let them know. I'm like, hey man, where'd you get this number from? Oh, well, that's with my overtime. Gotcha. How long have you had overtime for? I just started. Gotcha. Okay. Well, yep, we're gonna be kind of climbing up a hill on this one, man, because I can't really use that right now. But again, it just goes to show you, man, that a pre-qualification means nothing.
Well, that's the biggest thing I tell everybody, especially on the seller side, because a lot of sellers will be, when I list a house, I'm like, I want to make sure I see these pre-approval letters, and I try to explain to them. I was like, yes sir, yes ma'am, right? Yep. And I will ask for that from the buyer's agents, just like I would produce those for the sellers if I was on the buyer side, but they should understand fully well that all this could still dynamically change. Yeah. And it's depend on their lender. It's depend on what the rates, did their rates get locked in when they did this? Because if if they were right on that line of being approved or disapproved,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden, the rates take a hike,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they shoot up by even a quarter or something like that.
It could definitely kill
they
your deal.
they could be no longer qualified.
Well-
So there's that's why again those notification forms, there's like 5 million things to do on a notification form anymore.
Yeah.
But it talks about applying for, you check a box. Buyer has applied for his credit check stuff. Buyer has
Yeah.
this or that. Buyer has home insurance is a huge one, right? Because
Yeah.
you could be pre-approved based off your lender thinking that your home insurance is $20 a month.
Yeah. And then when you get it, it's like $100. You're like, oh,
You're like, oh crap. And then now, is it because you're unqualified, or is it because you're now over budget, or our famous statement of the taxes and the insurance, right?
yeah.
So taxes and home insurance, guys, like a lot of times they'll be like, oh, $20 for each. Well, that's not even remotely close.
Yes.
Because your mortgage payment could be $400 more a month
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day,
Well-
because of that's what your taxes and insurance are. But so does that, it may not disqualify you on a debt to income scale, but it may be the disqualification, like in the beginning of this, of the cold feet of, I can't afford this.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like, that's kind of why it's really good to have a local lender. Goodness, things make me burp. Jesus. To have a local lender, because some lenders out of town, even in a different state, sometimes sometimes a lot of lenders don't pass the common sense test. Okay, you let's just say you have a buyer who's pre-approved with some dude in Utah, whatever, Utah, and he's like, hey, I need a pre-approval letter. Okay, here you go. Then you guys go under contract. The loan estimate goes out. Payment seems crazy cheap, and the client's all excited, but then the title work comes in, and now the payment jumps up like $150. What happened? Now your client's freaking out. Hey, what happened? Why did my payment go up so much? Oh, well, I checked on the MLS on this new construction. It says taxes were $999. And so all I did was I just divided that by 12, and that's how it came up with your estimate. But again,
But the house next door has been recorded at 7,000 a year. So
yeah. But that's what you see, man. That's what you see. Instead of like being like, all right, man, you're buying a $400,000 house. Good probability, you're probably about 4,500, maybe even $5,000, depending on where, what location you're at. That's ideally where you're going to be at. And so that's kind of where you start seeing the difference between a good loan officer and then a great loan officer. Dude, you don't win them all. I don't win them all. There's some people who's purely rate, purely cost, which I understand. But at the end of the day, man, it's just like, I just know, I'm doing my due diligence, and I'm not, just trying to, win a deal just to win a deal. Like, I'm not going to reel somebody in with an unrealistic payment or unrealistic rate just to win the deal. And then it's just like, gotcha, like when you do go under contract. It happens more so than not, man. And it's,
well, yeah, I mean,
I've helped plenty of clients, man, who's just pre-approved with, I'm not going to, it was a lender that used to be here. They're no longer in business, but, freaking out. Hey, why did my cash close go up? Hey, why is this? Can you help me?
yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, send me your loan estimate, send me your closing disclosure. And so I'll have them on a Zoom call. I remember I did it with 2 different clients with the same lender. I had them both, like, different clients, but same thing, same scenario. I put them up on a Zoom call. I was like, hey, man, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it? Yeah. And I went through and I highlighted each section. So I broke it down for them. Like, okay, well, dude didn't lock you out of their, dude didn't lock your interest rate in the beginning. Now you're paying for it on the back end because the market got worse. What did that cost you? Okay, you didn't have anything in Section A. Now all of a sudden you got $6,000 in Section A.
Yeah.
Your prepaids. Hey, they said, $80 a month on your homeowner's insurance. Well, you got a homeowner's insurance at $123 a month. Okay, same,
All this is
all that,
math
yeah,
is adding
and
up.
then it starts snowballing at that point. And I tell a lot of people, and that's kind of the big thing with me and my clients. I'm like, hey, man, you can choose whatever homeowners insurance company you want. Like a free game, dude. Pick whoever you want.
Yeah.
But I said, all I ask is, can you please get with me before you finalize your policy, just because I want to make sure, like, you know, if I'm quoting you at 120 a month, which is kind of high, if I'm quoting you 120 and you're coming back and telling me it's 180, I was like, I think we should maybe entertain another quote.
Yeah, I think we
You
can
know,
just do some more shopping.
yeah, you know, and I'm like, so,
Quite pricey.
yeah.
$180.
yeah, but no, man, that's kind of the biggest thing, man, where a lot of people, just don't, there's only so much you can do. Put it like that. You know, and as vicious and as chaotic this industry can be, you can only do you. You can only do so much, to where it's at some point you're just like, hey man, like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, if you're not happy with this, or you're not, like, if you're trying to, how many times I've tried to tell you, you know, a $400,000 home is not going to be a $900 payment. Like, I can't beat that up into you anymore. And if you can't come to terms with that, then, you know, maybe go to the feel good lender, who's going to tell you, oh, you want a $400K house for 900? I got you, man. All right, yeah. So it's going to require $300,000 down, and
like it's gonna cost
you know,
you a lot.
but honestly, man, that's what some people want, man. They want that feel good. Like, they want to be told what they want to hear.
And that's what, for me, that's what I just refuse, man. I can't do it. I can't do lip service.
Nope.
Can't either. With people. I just can't do it, man.
No.
Like, and that's why
Because it's not worth it. It's not worth the headache,
and
man.
there's a lot of sellers and a lot of buyers who've elected to not use me. And then I've had several of them come back and reach back out and be like, so everything you said was true and happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what, guys? Like, and I'm like, I'm really sorry you had to go through that. I'm really sorry that it turned out that way. And then now they've got a bad taste in their mouth for, you know, some other lender or some other realtor. And I severely, like, sincerely apologize. Like, or not apologize, but I'm sincerely sorry for you over that, because it's, my thing is, I would rather just be open and honest with you. Like, look, homie, I don't know how this is working in your mind.
Yeah.
But either on a contractual side, like, that's not even how this works, or lender side, like, that math doesn't math. Like, I'm not
Math is not mathing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not understanding how you're getting from here to here.
Well-
And you try to explain it. Well, so and so said that. No, I get that they said that, but I would like to know how.
Yeah. How'd you get there?
How'd
you
they
know?
get there?
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, you know, the couple, you know, obviously, you know, they kind of ghosted us now, but they were in a contract on a home with using some agent out of Nashville.
Yeah.
And, you know, that other lender was telling them, hey, you're not eligible for your VA. You have to do FHA. And I'm like, for what? And he's like, oh, because you're a
Those
refer
poor
file.
dudes, man. I don't know whatever happened.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, you know, and they were like, you know, and I was like, for what? And they said, oh, well, they told us we're a refer file and VA won't do that. And I was like, lies. I was like, if you're a refer with FHA and you're a refer VA, I was like, it doesn't matter.
It's the same checklist.
And I told them, I was like, look, they're probably telling you that because they can't do it. Their banks, their underwriters can't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, I promise you we can do it. I was like, please do not get
Those poor
gypped.
dudes, man, they start
No,
out,
yeah.
because I met those dudes. Me and Rachel did at an open house.
At open house, yeah.
Yeah, I remember they were explaining their whole situation to me, and I was like, time out. I was like, literally nothing you said makes any sense.
Well,
And then I had to call you, and you were like, yeah, none of that makes any sense. And then come to find out, like, every other week or every week that they would call you and touch base, it was like their cash to close, right? So was going up
yeah.
like every week.
Well-
and I'm like, what
Well,
in the world?
and I remember, man, because they sent me their loan estimate because they were telling me, hey, man, you know, what's your interest rates? You know, we would love to go with you. Where's your interest rates at? And I was like, oh, they're here and here. He's like, oh, man, they're giving us 4.5%. I was like, there ain't no way, man. Ain't no way. This is before the rates started cooling off. I was like, ain't no way. So I was like, hey, can you send me your loan estimate? They sent it to me.
Yeah, with like
you know what?
1,000 down.
You know what it was? It was a temporary buy down. They had no idea.
Oh god.
Like, and I was like, hey guys, I was like, so you guys are doing a temporary buy down. What does that mean? I was like, so was this not explained to you? No, not really. Okay, so let me tell you how this works. And I was like, your rate's not fixed for now. I was like, your 4.5% is good for 1 year. The next year goes up to 5.5%. The next year goes to 6.5%. Then your original rate of 7.5. I was like, are you going to be okay at the 7.5? Oh, wait, hold on. This doesn't make sense. And I was like, okay, see, and I was like, that's the problem. I was like, there's your problem right there. And
It doesn't make sense.
yeah. So, whenever we have those talks, man, that's the kind of BS that you see in this industry, though, man. 1,000%. You see this BS in this industry, and all you can do, man, is you can do your part and try to, do your best to try to educate them. And then after that, man, it's kind of like a fish, man. You throw them back in and swim, find your way.
No, that's a yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess it's taken years, right, to not take things.
Yeah.
I don't want to say personally, but like
I take everything personally. When people don't amuse me, I was like, why? What did I do? No.
For me, it's like at first it really was like it was a very. So you want to talk about the growing pains or the learning experience kind of in the beginning of this. Was like why don't people want to use me, right? And I think in the beginning is because I just didn't really know what I was doing, and I get that.
Yeah.
But now it's like it's almost I feel like maybe it's almost intimidating a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I want to dive so deep into things, but I don't want to dive so deep. I have to stop myself sometimes, but I want to dive deep because I want you to know, right? It's because at the end of the day, look, I'm not the one buying the house.
Yeah.
It's you, right? I'm not the one selling the house. It's you.
Yeah.
But I want to dive as deep as you can possibly go.
Yeah.
So that I can help you to kind of put the puzzle pieces together, if you will, or to understand this process, all the little nuances behind it. Because at the end of the day, none of this is my decision.
Yeah.
It's your decision.
But that's where it goes back to, we're not the ones making the decision for you. Like you said, we're here just to educate you. We're here to give you the facts, the reality of things. And then from there, you're going to have to understand if this is going to be a good move for you and your family. That's it. Like, I mean, I will never guilt trip anybody. I will never be upset with anybody who maybe runs all these scenarios and pieces out and says, hey man, it's just not it. It's like, hey, that's fine, man. I get it. Like, that's just the beauty. That's the beauty of this industry. I get it. Because I would much rather see you pull out now than for us to go into contract.
Well, and that's something, again, we were talking about this morning. It was, I was like, nobody thinks about the other side, right?
Yeah. 100%.
And what I mean by that is it's not that if I'm representing the buyer that I'm more concerned about the seller. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is if you're going to dive into this and we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to this process, you have to understand there are ramifications.
Yeah.
For everybody involved, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens if, okay, so you decide you're going to buy this house. What happens if that house going under contract allowed that seller to
go under contract
on something?
Right.
Or what happens if that seller's trying to close on their house and they picked your offer over somebody else's or whatever,
right.
because they're trying to, again, move on this? Or what happens, maybe they're, like myself, they're military, right?
Yeah.
And I'm PCSing somewhere and I'm trying to get my life going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to deal with this and so for people to just be like, nah, I changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like this goes back to, we need to be committed to this.
Yeah.
Now, if again, the inspection comes out unfavorably, I get it. It happens. I get it. If you got a bad quote, if you will, I don't want to say a bad quote, but you got a unreasonable quote from a lender, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden your payment's going up $400 a month, which I've literally seen that more times than I can remember, because they literally put $20 for freaking X and $20 for Z for freaking your for taxes and insurance, basically.
Yeah.
And I use those examples because those are the two most common.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, literally, but your actual taxes are $7,000 or $4,500 a year.
Yeah.
And then your home insurance is now $120, so that raised it up by $300.
Yeah.
And then you realize that, oh, well, they were charging me this 1%, right, for origination fee or whatever for a discount point. And it's like, well, you don't want to do that. Well, then now it raised your
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
there are things. It's not that they're intentionally fluctuating or trying to drive your payment up, but maybe it wasn't quite briefed all the way. And it's just
Yeah.
like that couple. They're like, "What do you mean we're doing
You know, temporary
a
buy down.
temporary buy
Yeah,
down?"
yeah.
Like that should. I mean, they signed. They in order to do that, they would have had to sign paperwork that says
Yep.
it. So are they one of those people that just go? You send them a document and it's like click 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 click. Like I tell my clients all the
Nine
time.
times out of 10, yeah.
I've got plenty of buyers that do that, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not going to read that." And I tell them, "I'm like, look, I literally need you to read this,
Yeah.
because I will fat finger something, I will misspell something, I'll mess up. I'm human, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need you to proof what I'm writing."
Yeah.
Because it's not that I'm intentionally doing anything wrong, but I was like, I make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'll write something wrong. I'll forget something. I'll
Yep.
do whatever. And again, it's your offer, it's your contract, it's your house you're selling or buying,
Yeah.
not mine. So
Yeah.
you need to be very in tune to what's going on.
Right.
And if you're just, as soon as it comes to you, electronic signature, you're like, sign, 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 incomplete. Dude,
Yeah.
I
No.
can't help you,
Yeah.
man. Like, it's like,
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I agree. And I think at this point, you know, it- well, with the market heating up, man, I think, humbly, I think this is where, you know, just working with the right people is going to give you that extra edge, man, because, you know, I promise you in a little bit of a faster market, fast pace, where you almost have to just drop what you're doing to go view a home, you know, if you really want it. Um, I think this is where you're going to have a good duo, a good team, because the last thing you want is to have unrealistic expectations because you're going so fast, and then for you to get through all the way through the process, and now you're blindsided. But now you have to go out and find another house, but you're also competing against everybody and their mom. Like right now, you have a little bit of a grace. If the lender screws up, cool. You pop smoke, go to a different lender, make sure they're good, go find another house, and you have plenty to pick from. But when when this fire starts spreading, man, and the market starts picking back up and gets a little competitive again, dude, you're not going to have that time, dude. Like every moment counts during
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of grace right now.
that whole 100%.
Between the concessions that a lot of the sellers are that are offering,
Yeah,
and I would say the leniency that
Yeah.
a lot of the sellers are kind of willing to have is pretty remarkable right now. It really is. Like it's a
Listen.
really 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 good time to be a buyer.
and listen, yeah, and you know what? The sellers, because sellers are really nice right now. Builders are really nice. I'm like, homie, you give the control back to the sellers. You want to talk about ruthless? You want to talk about but that's just what.
But then we're going to be back to, and again going back to this whole, let's paint a little bit different, or
Yeah,
a little bit different picture of, well, so we'll fast forward, X amount of time in the future, right? So let's
Yeah.
say that, so it flips and it's more of a seller controlled market versus a negotiable market. 'Cause
Right.
We're in a really good negotiable market right now.
yeah,
Let's say it's a little more seller controlled, right? So what happens if you get you call whatever lender, you use them to get under contract, awesome. And then let's say you're 2 weeks out from closing, and you get not necessarily your final CD being your closing disclosure, but you're getting an updated, very very close update number of what this is actually going to cost you, because you got
Yeah.
your insurance, you got your all your all your money's basically put together in one pot, so you know what it's going to cost you.
Right.
And you're like, oh man, I'm going to jump over here to this lender. Well, what happens if it takes that lender says, hey, look, I need at least 3 weeks. Well, you're 2 weeks out from closing, so that would mean that you would have to extend your contract by a week.
Yep. Yeah.
So let's say for example that you got in a contract right before it flipped, and then now that it's more of a seller controlled market, as a listing agent, I'd tell them, I mean, they don't have to.
Extend.
My seller's going to be like, hey, do we have to accept this? Well, you don't have to extend.
Yeah.
And if you don't extend, there's a possibility you could get more, but you're going to sit on the market for, you may sit on the market for another 2 weeks. So at the end of the day, the math kind of might even itself out, but
Yeah.
you could get more than what you think too.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So then now you're running into the jeopardy of, like, instead of trying to be like, ha, 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 I hold all the cards, to you might be giving up all your cards.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I really think that, again, that's just kind of why the proper expectation up front and just understanding the market. Because like, dude, I tell everybody right now, I'm like, yo, dude, like right now, currently, yeah, you can get a lot of help from the sellers. And I was like, I don't know how long it's going to last for. I don't, you know, right now we can negotiate to where, you know, we can get some help from the sellers, maybe get a few discount points in there for you, and you don't have to come to the table with any money or just your down payment, whatever it is, right? But you know, there's plenty of lenders out there. I remember again when the rates were in the 2s and 3s and it was chaotic. Oh, hey, yeah, you're pre-approved, you're good to go. We just need like $7,000 from the seller. I was like, so I'm sorry, what? I was like, you know, seven who from the seller? I was like, you better be giving the seller $7,000. What you mean? I was like, sellers ain't giving you nothing, man. I was like, but I've had those conversations, and I'm like, hey, look, I can pre-approve you, but just realistically, you're going to be spinning your wheels because there's nobody giving you seller credits right now. Unfortunately, I was like, maybe find a, you know, needle in a haystack to where maybe you're at a small town with a population of like 10.
Right.
And there's nobody who wants to live out there. But hey, I found a house that's been sitting on the market for 100 days. All right, go try to kick them in the nuts, you know, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, it's like you might get lucky with it.
You might.
I mean,
but I'm just saying, as a whole, man, that's just where the proper expectations and understanding the market that you're in is going to give you the upper edge, because I promise you go blindly into one of these markets, man. When it picks back up, it gets your feelings hurt, man.
You're gonna get rolled hard.
You're gonna get rolled. You're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna be so upset. You're gonna be like, buying a house is so hard. It's so dumb. In reality, if I would just prepped you up front, and I'm like, hey, bro, look, I've laid out how this market is. The odds of you getting into this home right now is pretty slim because you don't have the money to play with right now. You can go make offers, but I'm just going to let you know the odds of you getting an offer accepted is extremely slim. Extremely slim. And, you know, and if you decide to push forward in that market and do that, then you can't be upset and saying buying a house sucks. This is horrible, because I told you from the get-go that this was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
To begin with. And, you know, again, man, I've had those conversations too. So, I don't know, man. It's election year, man. So 2024 is
Yeah, I think this year's gonna be. I think this year's gonna be nuts, man. I mean, and I don't mean nuts as in like it's gonna. I just mean like I think there's just gonna be so many different highs and lows and changes.
yeah.
That I think it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. I think it's just going to kind of be I think everything's going to be kind of a constant moving target, if you will. Like there's I really do, man, because we've got so many things going on, you know, within the U.S. We've got all these different policy things. We've got, you know, the economically wise, like, so with the interest rates and stuff like that stuff's kind of fluctuating. We've got, just everything, man. And it's just such a weird year coming out of everything, and then but also going into this year. Yeah. It's gonna be, I don't know, man. I think it's gonna be weird, man.
I think it's gonna be weird, but I think it's, again, for the real estate side and, you know, our business and as a whole, I think we're gonna benefit from a lot from it, right? But I want people to understand, man, like that things could always flip like a switch.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously everything's trending in the right direction. We're good to go.
Yeah, but it can get turned off, like you just said, man.
It really could. And, you know, and that's why I tell a lot of people, I told a lot of people, like, if you take an interest rate now, you have a very good probability of like, hey, dude, here by the end of the year, you're probably going to get the opportunity to refinance, because they should be lower than what they are now. You know, I can't it should be. And I can't guarantee it, but I was like, I mean, it's a pretty good, it favors us pretty well. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier, is you don't control the market. I don't control the market. You don't control the rates. I don't control the rates. You know, and guys, like I said, election years are always the funky years, man. They're always the funky years. And, you know, last time we had an election year, things got a little crazy.
They did get pretty crazy.
It did get pretty crazy.
They got pretty crazy.
You know, all I can say, man, is, like I said, you know, we don't get too political on here, but just, I would tell everybody just to brace yourself and just hold tight, because I think this year is going to fly by a lot faster than what most people think because of everything that's happening. So, yeah, man, I think that's all we got. I will say for the people who do listen to us on Facebook Live, yes, next week we'll have better mics. Shout out to Kellen for losing one of my mics. No, we're gonna have better. We're gonna have better quality mics. You guys probably see us on there, but the mics that we have currently is for the computer that we have up here for our podcast on YouTube. But it should have better mics so the sound quality is not so janky. I tried to use this mic right here. I don't know if you guys could see it. I don't know if that helped out. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I'm going to go off on a whim and say it probably didn't. But we'll have a little clip-on mics to where you can hear us clearly next time.
That was one we used a few times back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, we got those. And then, a nice little camera system we're going to upgrade for our podcast. So it's not going to look like, some of these podcasts we're filling with potato. I mean, right now it's not horrible, but definitely this is not a 2024 video. This looks like something fresh out of 2002.
Yeah. Deuce.
But no, we do plan to definitely grow the podcast, man. And I've been encouraging some other agents to come on just to talk. I want to hear from other people's sides. I also, again, I would love for some home inspectors. Even man, I might reach out to Sid. He's an appraiser.
He's a busy dude, man.
I know he's a busy dude, man. I know he's a busy dude, but and I think it'd be cool. You know what? Even if we pull on Joey on here, because Joey Williamson, he's got a very deep knowledge of appraisals.
I learned pretty much everything I know.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
From him when it comes to like how to price, how to all that stuff. Like he's got a very good mechanical knowledge of kind of how.
I honestly think we should bring on Joey and Chris.
I think it'd be fun.
So last week I tuned into their live.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, Adam and Daniel have been trying to copy us, but they can't do it better than us." And I'm like, and then I didn't catch that part because I came in like a little bit later, and then
shots fired.
I know, and then Chris was like, "Okay, Daniel, please don't look at the beginning of this video because we dogged you, but we thank you for doing it." I was like, "Okay, yeah."
All right, bow tie.
God, I don't know, man. Chris is too witty, man. Like you can say anything to this dude, man, and he is Johnny on the spot with his comeback,
good,
man. He's a good
I miss seeing him. Seeing him.
Yeah. But yeah, so definitely I definitely want to get more people on here, man. Another good person I kind of really want on here is Charlie. Charlie.
My Charlie?
You're Charlie. I want to get Charlie on here. Mr. Hippity Hoppity, get off my property. I think he'd be fun just to interview, man. I really do. I think it'd be funny as hell. This dude coming in overalls and long hair.
He shaved his head.
Did he really?
He shaved his mullet off, yeah.
Why?
I don't remember. I was all depressed.
Man.
He used to have a beard like me, but like a giant mullet to go with it.
Yeah, dude.
I was so proud of him.
I remember I was in academy and I saw him walking and I was like, that's Charlie, man. Because he wore the same overalls that he wore to closing. He had his ponytail at the time that was coming out and his hair drooped down. I was like, that's Charlie, man. No, honestly, he bought I truthfully want to get a client that was in here. Again, I've said this multiple times. I want to get somebody in here that's been through the ringer for when the rates were going 2s and 3s, and like just so maybe you can just hear it from somebody else who bought during that time. When the rates were crazy, seriously, wholeheartedly. And dude, I even think I don't know. I think we can definitely drum up some of our past clients just to get some people in here, man. And
He's at work with him.
yes, Charlie Shaw. Yeah, I love it. Charlie's thebomb.com, man. He's a Georgia Bulldogs fan. Shout out to that. Yep, that's why we connect so well. But But yeah, man, nah, he's I really do want to bring somebody in, man, who bought during the crazy times, because now you're not just hearing it from us, because I think that's a big thing a lot of people can maybe relate to, because you're like, hey, dude, you were a home buyer at one point.
I'm trying to think of who else would be. I'm trying to think of who got like.
You know what?
Trying to think of somebody who like got their offers turned down multiple times before they got into something. That's what I was trying to think of, like somebody else. Because I got Charlie into a place
Yeah.
pretty quick. We got his home sold pretty quick.
We called him Man Bum Overall Guy.
I think it's man bun.
Man Bun. A big old fat dip. dude, Charlie's like my spirit animal, man. He's just, I like Charlie.
Charlie's my boy, man.
Yeah.
I love that dude. He's my boy.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go through, man, and we'll try to get somebody on here, but I think it'd be different, man, for a lot of people to relate to what it was like, because, yeah, again, you and I we're deemed as salesmen. We'll tell you everything to get you to buy a house.
But it's not even about that, man. It's just
It's not, man.
It's literally just we're just trying to.
He's a great dude, by the way. Not a good dude. He's a great dude.
He's a great. It's just education, guys. Like it's literally just education. It's look, man. This is like I say all the time. Facts are facts are facts, and math is math. Like I can't. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna tell you what you want to hear. I'm gonna tell you the reality of things, and
You know the only time I tell somebody what they don't want to hear, it's Carmen. Carmen drives a GMC Acadia. Okay, that it's like a metallic. It's like a iridium metallic. So it's like that grayish color.
But it's got that like flake to it, whatever.
Yeah. So so she claims it's black, and she's like, she says it's light black. It's not, dude. When she goes Walmart pickup,
She said it's legit black.
dude, no, dude. Like I argue with her, and like sometimes I'm just like whatever. But I like her son, Kason. I was like, hey, what color is my truck? He's like black. I was like, what color is mommy's car? He's like black. And I'm like, I told Carmen, I was like, okay, well, let's get some black touch-up paint and let's touch up your car. She's like, oh, we don't have to do that. I was like, right, because it ain't black.
What do you call it? Rate buy down or what's
Oh, Britt.
what's
Britt,
the one?
I've been trying to get some of her team members to come out and come on this podcast.
Why can't I think of what it's called right now? Rate buy down.
So,
Or temporary buy down.
So, well, we can talk about both. You know, a rate buy down is so if you do a discount point, right? You're buying your rate down. That is fixed if you're doing discount points. Okay.
Facts.
So, you know, if you do discount points to do to get a lower rate, that's a fixed rate. It's not going to change unless you decide to refinance or whatever. Okay. A temporary buy down is exactly what it is. It's a temporary buy down, meaning, you know, even if I say, hey, I can get you at 4.5%, that 4.5% is typically going to last only 12 months. And then it goes up 1% after that. Then it goes up to
We got a
5.5%.
2-1 and a 3-4.
You got 3-2-1 buy down, 2-1 buy down, and then you just got a standard temporary buy down. You know, temporary buy downs, I've said this multiple times on the podcast that it's only meant for certain people. I don't flash it a lot because it's not meant for everybody. It's some people get fixated on it. If I say, hey man, you know, like what if I came up to you and you're like, hey man, I can get you a 3.5% right now.
I'm buying everything in town.
Well, because in your head, you're going to be so fixated on the 3.5% that no matter if I tell you, hey, it's going to go 4.5%, oh, they don't care, man. That 3.5% is going to save me so much money the first year.
But how does the escalation work on it?
So it always goes up 1% each year. So, okay. So like, let's just say you're take temporary buy down out of the equation. Your current rate today, let's just say it's 6.5%.
Okay.
Let's just say you do a 3-2-1 buy down.
Okay.
Your original rate's 6.5.
So 3.5.
So 3.5 for the first 12 months. Then it goes up to 4.5 the next 12 months. Then it goes up to 5.5. Then it goes to your 6.5. That's fixed, and that's for the life of the loan. It doesn't change. It's one of those things, man, where I think it's good if you're PCSing and you don't plan to you honestly just plan to be here for the 2 or 3 years that you're going to be here, and you're going to deuces. Like you don't even want to rent it out. You don't want to deal with it. It's not a bad option.
Right.
But for the vast majority, a temporary buy down, it can be great as long as you understand that
It's going up.
it's going up. And I think it's like I have this conversation with people. I'm like, look, dude, you're cool with the 6.5%. Oh, dude, that's an awesome payment at the 6.5%. Okay, as long as you're okay with that, now we can kind of tiptoe and look at. Let's see what a 2-1 buy down looks like. Because for the first two years, we can save you some money, right? Because you're going to be used to the original rate, so you're good. It's just icing on the cake.
Oh, this is a really good question, Britt. It says if you do a 2-to-1 buy down and you sell in 1 year, or 1 year, are you penalized?
Are you penalized? Yes, Britt. It goes straight into your bank account, and it's for you to spend. No, so how it works is we're splitting it. So how it works is on a temporary buy down, you actually have a separate escrow account. Okay. So what happens is you have a separate escrow account because you're going to have the seller pay into this. Okay.
Because so let me back up real quick here.
Yep.
For 2 seconds.
Yep.
With the 2-to-1 buy down, so understand that
You have to have the sellers pay into it.
yes, I was like the sellers have to agree
Yes.
in the contract to pay.
Yes.
Now that does not mean that you can just write in there seller to pay X amount, of your closing expenses. It has to actually be specified.
It does. And the thing is, like, a lot of people think that, like, hey, let's just say I got 15 grand. Okay. And I'm just throwing willy-nilly numbers out here. But let's just say your temporary buy down cost you 8 grand. Okay. I want you to understand one thing. You're going to subtract 8 grand from the 15 grand.
You got 7 left.
You got 7 left. And guess what? You still have your closing costs.
I was like, so you've still got somewhere between probably 3 and 5 that you're going to have to make
Yes.
up for, because somewhere between 10 and 12 is,
Yep.
well, we'll say 9. Well, 10 and 12 is going to be your
Right.
average.
So how a temporary buy down works, right? So let's just say we'll use the 8,000. Let's say it's going to cost you 8,000 for this 2-1 buy down. This 8,000 is put into an escrow account. Okay, you don't touch it. You don't get to see any of it. Okay, so each time you make your payment for that first year, because you remember the rate's cheaper for the first year, the difference between that rate and your original rate, that difference in payment is taken out of that escrow account.
Yeah.
It's withdrawn from that escrow
Because your
account.
payment, so in other words, your payment of, let's say for easy math, we'll say it's $2,000 is your mortgage.
Your true mortgage payment is 2,000. Yep.
Yeah, your true mortgage payment. Let's say, for example, again, this is all fake math.
Yep.
but- So $2,000 a month. Let's say with that 3.5%, you're at $1,500
Yep.
a month. So what he's saying is
The $500.
$500 a month comes out of this. So you have a pool or a pot of, 8 grand or whatever
Yep.
you just said over here, right? So that $500 comes out of that. So you paying
You're paying
$1,500,
$1,500, and then that
but
extra.
that extra $500 is coming out of that pot,
Yes.
which makes your 20 grand
Yes.
that goes towards your loan, and that continues.
Yeah. And as far as going to being penalized, no, you're not penalized. What happens is that difference, okay, can be applied to your pretty much your next mortgage, right? So like you could actually use that money, utilize it to it's actually considered a down payment. So like let's just say you're selling to go into a different house. Let's just say after a year you got 5 grand left over. That 5 grand goes towards the principal. So if you find a house for 305, that 5 grand is automatically going to go to the 305. And
Once that buy down's completed.
yes, yeah. Like so, once you sell, so like I said, you didn't hit your.
Oh,
two,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So once you didn't, so once you have a 2-1 buy down, but you decide to sell it within a year, and you have 5 grand left over in that account. Okay. Well, if you're buying another property, then that gets pushed over into as a principal reduction. So if you're buying a house for 305, you have 5 grand left over. You're actually going to finance only 300.
Got it.
So it's like a little bit of like a down payment money, the extras.
If it's there still.
If it's still there, yeah. But yeah, no, like again, temporary buy downs, man. It's definitely not meant for everybody, man. Definitely not meant for everybody, and it does take a certain person to understand that and to tackle that on.
And the biggest reason why him and I were not and I say this lightly, but the biggest fans of it
Yeah,
was because when the rates were so high, we're talking 7.5%.
yeah.
There were people trying to find ways basically to get a lower payment.
To make rates sexy. That's literally what
Make
it was.
rates sexy.
That's literally what it was, man. Literally what it was. And I told that to somebody. I was like, bro, they're just trying to sex up the rate because,
But at the end of the day,
yep,
if you cannot afford, right? And
Yes.
we say this every single episode. It's affordability. Can you actually afford it? Which means that is it within your actual real life
right,
budget?
right,
And does it meet your intent of what you're looking for? Does it meet the why, right? But if you're gonna do that just because like, oh, well, I can afford this for this year and for next year at
Right.
a 3.5%.
Yeah.
And then I can afford it at a 4.5%.
mm-hmm.
Well, banking solely on the concept of I might be able to refinance this or I'll sell this. Like that's guys, that is not a great
It's not a good mentality to walk
no,
into. No.
because again, I say it every time, Amazon's out of crystal ball, so I don't know what the future holds, right? The whole you're banking on it's a straight up gamble because you don't know. Nobody knows what the interest rates are going to be. They could be in the 3s in 2 years. I don't freaking know, or they could be at 10s. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's about buying smart and buying within a budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
I
No,
can't-
100%.
We say it 100 times a day,
Yeah.
man. Is it
Yeah.
within an actual budget? Have you really sat down and really look at what that budget is?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, man.
But yeah, $800,000 house with a 2-to-1 buy down, sure, send it.
Hey, we can get Chad come on here.
That'd be good.
Yeah, Chad'd be good. Yeah. Chad, if you want to come out. Mike Langley did it one time. He just popped on. And Chad, if you want to come out, man, I'd love to have you on, man. You can speak on commercial. Yeah, commercial would be a pretty good topic too. But yeah, so again, for everybody just again listening, we are trying to upgrade a lot of things. Sorry for the audio quality for probably like the past month on these. We had one good live because we had those microphones that we had clipped onto us. And Kellen stole them for whatever reason. I don't know. And lost them. No, I'm just joking. I don't know what happened to them. But we got some new ones coming. And the same thing with the video quality for the podcast. We're going to try to make it a little bit better. And obviously, there's hopefully here in a couple of weeks, man, we have our official podcast room to where we can kind of actually go and have an official room. Because obviously that little tin can that we were in before got too...
That sucker got warm.
Listen, man, especially with a hefty guy like me, I radiate out a lot of heat, man. So it's like, there's a few times where I'm like, all right, dude, we got
it got hot. It
Yeah.
Started
yeah,
sweating.
like a sauna. So, but cool. All right, so that's gonna be it. But yeah, just tune in next week. We'll try to grab somebody to hop on, and yeah, super excited to kind of see where this podcast goes. Yep. Cool.
Awesome.